My name is Scott Eshbaugh, and I consider myself a multidisciplinary artist. My design is actually my background is actually in design. So I had a career designing software at IBM for about 7 years, and then I left that in 2021 to really pursue more of an artistic lifestyle and to be able to like work on different projects. So I when I since I was 14, I've danced, and particularly I've break danced. So breaking is a really big part of my life, and a big reason why I made the choice to like sort of leave a stable corporate job was to pursue that more. But it was also to really explore all these different types of art forms that I wanted to be involved with. So before I was actually wanted to become a designer, I was heavily into photography. Actually I went to art school and then transferred into design. But when I was in art school, I was actually studying photography. So film actually didn't really enter into the conversation until probably after I graduated college, and I had some friends in college that I ended up living with after college, and I knew them to some extent, but I didn't know them super well, and they were actually both filmmakers and had went to film school and had done some amazing projects. So just living with them, I got to be exposed to like what it was like to make film, whether it was short films or just commercial work and everything. So I think that has sort of over the years kind of like planted a bunch of seeds in my mind. Um, and through them I've been able to work on covering live events. Like they would be hired to maybe cover a live event, so I got to use the cameras and the setups and the rigs that they had. One of them works for a traveling dance convention, and he runs the video department there, so I've been able to travel with him and like get the Ronin out and kind of cover this sort of like dance convention event. So I've just been exposed to film in all these like little different ways over the years, and it really has come into focus for me to really combine film with breaking and to really think about, how can I cover my own breaking scene here in Austin? How can I highlight the people that are in the scene? How can I elevate, my crew that I'm in? How can I elevate myself as well? And how can I just show the world like this amazing scene in this amazing community? So, I like to do that partly through just documenting an event, but also through really going beyond just the physical aspect, but kind of bringing in more of the emotional and the spiritual aspect of it. So I really like to like kind of create almost video art along like that kind of captures the essence of breaking. And even last year, I had the opportunity to create like a video installation that was sort of a part of a performance art or like part of a breaking event or whatever. So that kind of like was a dialogue between the breaking and then like the video on screen. So those types of areas are just things that I'm like trying to push more of myself into, is just how do I kind of capture this art form. So I think that's really kind of like the direction I'm in right now. It's evolving, I think a lot of it is really evolving. So you know my girlfriend Jenny is she's an actress, but she's also a director. She's done some producing as well. So she's starting to pick up and get involved in all these different projects, and I'm starting to see myself playing a bigger role in some of those. So, I being more of the technical person, the person behind the camera, kind of finding my way into some of those roles. So, even that's just kind of a journey that I'm on. So, yeah, it's been a lot. Like I'm doing a lot of different things right now, but that's really the journey so far.
That's awesome, Scott. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful journey and very in tune with what it really is creatively inspiring you, how you're merging dance and now bringing it into moving image format.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you go to school?
I went to the University at Texas in Austin, and I studied design. So I have a BFA in design. So I was in the art school, basically. Yeah, I was at UT.
So you went to art school here at UT. Were you born here?
So I was born in Florida, but I didn't really live there. I moved to Texas by the time I was, I think, three, four. So I grew up in, if you know Plano, Texas, it's north of Dallas. So I grew up in North Texas in that area. And then after high school, ended up coming to UT for school. And then ever since then, I've been in Austin.
So you technically are an Austinite.
Yeah, I like to say if you've had like 2 or 3 major life experiences, you're kind of like could maybe consider yourself an Austinite. So I think I've kind of like have collected enough of those. So Austin is my home, I would say. Yeah, definitely.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so, like, now that what inspired you into dancing? How did you get involved in that?
Yeah, so it's so unlikely because even now, like, there's not a lot of people that break, and you don't really hear about it. You don't really see about it. That's changing, I would say. It's actually going to be in the Olympics in 2024. It's a really big opportunity for us. So, but back then, I had a friend, and his older brother did it, and I was at a party, and I saw him dance, and it's just one of those things that when you see it, you just have to do it. Like there's things that like are there's things that like I don't know. There's a difference between like inspiration and like when something inspires me, it's like there's action behind it. So that was something that I saw that it was just I had to do it. What I meant to say is like if you're inspired to do something, I always say like there's action behind it versus being just admiring something. It's very easy to admire a lot of things, but when there's something that really it feels like it pulls you towards it, that's what breaking was for me. So the moment I saw it, I was like, I have to do this. And I convinced my friend, and then he actually didn't want to do it because his older brother was like gonna beat him up or something like that. It was a whole thing. Like he didn't want him learning, and I had to like, no man, screw your brother. But we'd started doing it together, and we just stuck with it, and then it's always been a part of my life since then. So yeah.
That's really special.
Yeah.
That is really, really special. I love that when what you're saying about being inspired, it's as if you're in spirit, you're inspired to be able to now take action.
Yeah.
To be able to perform essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, putting yourself out there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So fast forward now, you are now getting behind the camera.
Yeah.
Right? So can you talk to us a little bit about your experience using a camera and what type of cameras you prefer running on?
Yeah. So I would say just my experience is I've always kind of been messing with the camera throughout my life. And then I think for me, recently, like the camera that I think I'm most drawn to is just like the Sony A7 cameras because I like the nimble format that they have. I like that you can bring it into a lot of different situations. They're very mobile, so the subject matter that I want to capture, dancing, I think kind of lends itself well to that. And I think they're like really powerful cameras. There are other cameras. I know there's the Sony, is it the SX9?
Oh, the
FX9, yeah. So there's other cameras I'm still kind of like learning about and getting my hands around like the different strengths and weaknesses of it. But yeah, that camera in particular I think is, and just the format of it where you can add in like a lot of quick rigging and just be very mobile with it and be able to move around, adding on the Ronin or even using like the Dana Dolly with it as well, and just being able to like kind of produce some of those dynamic shots I think is something like I'm really drawn to.
That's awesome. So what it sounds like, you're very comfortable in due to the nature of the film that inspires you, like dance. You're very comfortable with running and gunning.
Yeah.
Being light and going out there and capturing a lot of footage.
Absolutely. Yeah. So because I know there's some setups where you're more in this production setting and things are really calculated and everything. And I think that's an environment that I haven't really explored too much, but I think just through, on and off kind of capturing like different events or different things within dancing, like being able to just see something and just go out and go for it and just really use, like there's a moment that's created and just capitalizing on that moment, not necessarily like premeditating and setting everything up. I think I really thrive in just sort of that like spontaneity and just really like not coming in with a definite plan, but just really coming into a situation and just uncovering the opportunities and finding my way into it. And I think that's something that, is its own skill set. This is another skill set to really come in and like, here's the shot. I know I want to do this. It's going to take this planning. I'm going to go through these steps to plan it all out. I kind of see that as something that like I don't have as much experience in. And I think just the way that my background has been, I've just kind of like been more on that like gunning and running type of setup for sure.
Okay, no, that's great. You're very focused and specific where you're like, hey, you know what, like narrative filmmaking where you're setting it up and you're planning everything before you shoot, you have more experience and more like doc type style filmmaking.
Yeah.
Where you're out there and you're, hey, the subject's coming out of the bus. We got to capture this B-roll. All right, let's go. Or the subject's now going to start dancing really soon, so we need to go there. And it's not staged, but being really nimble and agile. Yeah, which is a skill within itself.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100% to be able to do that. So, are you interested in like supporting? Like, how would you see your role in narrative filmmaking?
Yeah. So I think right now I'm in a moment of exploration. So I'm opening to doing something that's a little bit more like traditional, and you're kind of setting everything up and everything. But I could see myself doing something like supporting in a documentary, or capturing an event, or something of that nature. So I think that there's a skill set, like there's something that I gravitate towards because it's more familiar to me. But I think another thing that I'm personally pushing myself to do is to get out of my comfort zone and to really explore new opportunities. So that's actually like why I'm really excited to work with my girlfriend on some of her projects, because it's not where I'm just in a moment and I'm just finding the magic there, but it's more of, there's already something we want to tell, and like, how do I imagine it in my mind and then bring that into reality and kind of set things up the way that they are. So, that's actually something that I'm pretty excited to learn about. That I just did this camera and rigging class, and I think that kind of really helped give me a lot of ideas. I'm like, oh, okay, so if I want to get this shot, I'm going to use this piece of equipment, and that's going to help me get that shot. Or like, these types of shots are going to help me tell this type of story. I think some of those techniques and like tools, I'm really excited to learn more about.
Right on. No, right on. That gives me already thinking like, oh, so diving a little bit more into that, like the narrative filmmaking, with scripted work, you having experience as a photographer, that lends itself really well, because visualizing shots, I could imagine maybe there's some type, or even design, there's skill set there that you can use to support you as you're continuing to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. Like photography and I think film they're different enough, I think, to separate the two. But there is similarities for sure. And even with design, because the principles of design is universal, how you're composing a shot, how you're communicating certain things. I think actually my background in design, I think, helps in a lot of ways, like by being an artist, or it helps being a designer. I think helps me be a better artist, because it's all communication. And a lot of times in design, the objective is to communicate, kind of to solve a problem, but you're using creativity to solve that problem. You're using all the visual, principles of design to solve that problem. Whereas in art is really about expressing your own thing. You get to choose the problem you want to solve. Someone else isn't choosing that problem for you to solve. So with all that, you still have to apply that creativity and how you're telling a story, how you're solving a problem, because even in art there's problems you have to solve. How am I going to show this really intimate moment, or how am I going to show this really violent or intense or whatever moment? That whole process, I think, is the same whether you're designing or creating art, whether you're doing photography, whether you're doing video. So there's a lot of crossovers and there's a lot of applications, and I think that's something that I do feel kind of confident coming into changing into more of like film and narrative and video is because I'm bringing all that background with me, and I think that helps me. That's why I consider myself like a multidisciplinary artist, because I see the overlaps there, and I've always framed myself more as a generalist than a specialist, and I think that comes from just a lot of the curiosity I have about the world, and I'm a little ADHD, and I'm all over the place sometimes, and that can be a weakness, but it can be a strength too, because you see the connections between a lot of different things, and you are I think that ultimately kind of helps me approach problems differently, or a situation differently, because I can draw on all these different types of experiences. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. I could see that for sure. So maybe something as well, because I know you're trying to get on like to set something that is a potential. If you are a photographer, I don't know if you're still interested, but people always need people behind the scenes taking behind the scene photos, and that's a great way to get yourself on the set, and then being able to like connect with the crew or what have you, and then kind of just go from there, right? Because it's kind of like the same thing we're doing here. We're just like, we're all learning from each other and what inspires us, and what creative contribution we want to bring to the project. But that's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. So it sounds like to me there's definitely narrative, scripted filmmaking you're very interested in, and there's a lot of dynamic. There's a lot of creativity that you can foresee bringing into it, and you're still trying to learn to figure out where exactly is your what's going to give you the most curiosity and inspire you the most to contribute to.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, for like more like documentary style filmmaking, running and gunning type of filmmaking, you already feel very strong and very particular in regards to what you can provide in regards to your creativity. So that's really cool, and just wanted to make that very clear to the listeners. Those are the services that you feel confident in bringing to the table. And hey, on narrative side, you're always open to coming on set to be able to learn, because that's something that you're aspiring to.
Exactly. Yeah.
What about availability?
Availability for me. So right now I'm at a point where I'm doing freelance design work, and I'm trying to create a transition into where I can do design, but I can do dancing. I can focus on that, but then I can also focus on all these other creative endeavors with film and so forth. So my schedule is pretty flexible at this point. I continue to see it be that way. I think, there's some elements, like I think weekends right now for me are hard. Every weekend I perform and do dancing. I put on a show. So I think that's something that I would say is probably the most regular. But I think with everything else, there's a lot of flexibility. I think part of the benefit of freelancing and kind of having more of that entrepreneurial mindset is you get to kind of build your schedule and work around the way you want it to work. So that's something I've been like super excited about. So yeah, the availability is pretty flexible and open.
Right on. Right on. So, well, thank you so much, Scott, for taking the time to talk with us today. Just wanted to be able to share who you are, what you do, and what inspires you, what makes you curious, and to let the people out there know that, hey, if you want to bring on Scott to contribute and collaborate with, he's definitely available to do so. And we'll have some more information in the show notes, so that way they can get in contact with you.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Right on.
Pleasure talking.
Likewise.